My name is Kristi, and who am I? I live in North London. I'm originally from Hungary. Oh, amazing. I'm based in a theological college, so I teach philosophy and epistemology, and I'm also doing a part-time PhD. But for the past, I guess, maybe 12, 13 years, the Lord has been really kind to kind of release me into student missions of some sorts and variety. So I've had the immense privilege of speaking the gospel on campuses with student groups to their friends for over a decade. So this is something, this question in particular is very close to my heart. I'm sure it's close to yours too. And forgive me a little bit out of breath because we had a slight tech issue at the back. So thank you so much, Kenny, for saving us. Slightly controversial that. Right, so we're going to chat about where is God when it hurts. Let's see if this works. Connection lost. Kenny, I think, can you push on to the next? Hello. Slide, please. There should be a video coming up.
Suppose what Oscar believed in as he died, in spite of your protestations. Suppose it's all true. Suppose what Oscar believed in as he died, in spite of your protestations. Suppose it's all true. And you walk up to the pearly gates and you are confronted by God. What will Stephen Fry say to him, her, or it?
I will basically, what's known as theodicy, I think. I'll say bone cancer in children? What's that about? How dare you? How dare you create a world in which there is such misery that is not our fault? It's not right. It's utterly, utterly evil. Why should I respect a capricious, mean-minded, stupid God who creates a world which is so full of injustice and pain? That's what I would say.
And you think you're going to get in on that?
But I wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to get in on his terms. They're wrong. Now, if I died and it was Pluto, Hades, and if it was the 12 Greek gods, then I would have more truck with it, because the Greeks they didn't pretend not to be human in their appetite.
This interview, the moment you banish God, your life becomes simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living, in my opinion. If there is one, if there is a God, what kind of God is he? It's utterly apparent that he is monstrous. He is utterly monstrous. And I wonder if that's how you feel and think about God sat here today. Perhaps you're here because that is precisely what you think, and you're wondering how on earth I am going to get God off of the hook. You're wondering how I'm going to get God off the hook for bone cancer in children. Or perhaps you're here today because actually you're hurting. Perhaps you're here today because you've seen that as powerful as Fry's rhetoric is, banishing God actually hasn't made your life any simpler whatsoever. It hasn't made it simpler, purer, cleaner, more worth living. Perhaps you're here because you'd like to give God another hearing. Perhaps you're here because you've never even considered God in your pain before. And you're wondering, yes, where is he when it hurts? Is it even possible that he could be with me? Or perhaps you've just wandered in and you're thinking, this got very deep very quickly. Whomever you are, wherever you're from, I hope you know that you are so welcome here today. Because what we're looking at today is just the start of the discussion. And we, as members of a Christian union, we want to hear your stories. We want to hear your experiences. So please do come and chat with us about how you are wrestling with this reality for yourself. And we'll share with you how we're wrestling it for us and for ourselves. Because one thing that I definitely do not have, that is all the answers. I don't have those. But what we do know is that none of us is immune from suffering. And we know we don't even have to look out there, do we, at natural disasters, tsunamis, the life of bugs. I'm sure there are many things that are happening right now in our own lives as we're sat here in Romania in 2019. I'm sure there are many things in our own lives which just leave us utterly reeling. I wonder if you're able to relate to Melissa Broder. In her book, So Sad Today, She writes about her personal experiences of pain and suffering, and she writes it just so beautifully and so well. Can you relate to this? She says, I wake up scared, and I'm scared all day. I'm scared of being scared. Scared of losing it, scared of not being able to function, scared of being hospitalized, scared that I'm not okay. Scared of what life is and if I'm wasting mine. Scared that I have no home. That even the place I call home has no bottom to it, and I will just keep falling under and under and under. I fear others will discover that I'm not only imperfect, I'm not even okay. I fear that I truly am not okay, but most people who meet me never know that I'm struggling. On the outside, I'm smiling. I'm juggling all the balls of okayness, physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, existential. Underneath, I am suffering. I think that may have come up on the slide as well, that quote. I wake up scared, and I'm scared all day. Next one. We all suffer in this world, and our experiences leave us asking the question, if there is a good God, how on earth could he actually just let any of this happen? Because we rage, don't we? We utterly rage against this. And there are two ways in which we could approach this question. There's the philosophical approach, where you could ask, along with Fry, Epicurus, Hume, something like this. Hopefully it'll come up behind me. Is God willing to prevent evil, but not able? Then he's impotent. Is he able, but not willing? Then he's malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Whence then is evil? And if that's your question, if you're wondering how can evil be logically compatible with the existence of a good and all-powerful God, then please come and chat with me afterwards. Christianity stands up to scrutiny, and there's been much work that's been done recently in the area of philosophy of religion, which sheds light on this problem. So if that's you, please come and chat with me afterwards. I'd love to talk about this. Because what we're going to do today is we're going to focus more on the personal experience of evil and suffering. I think that's really where most of us are at, actually, aren't we? We want to know how God can be present with us in the midst of our suffering. May I share a little bit of my own life with you? Can I take this off? Can I use that one? Much better. Thank you so much. I just would love to share a little bit of my own life with you. Because is it even possible to know God in the midst of just such hideous pain and hideous evil? And the things that I'm going to chat about now, I don't really like talking about. I don't talk about them very often. So thank you for allowing me to share these things with you. Here's a little bit about my own story. I was born in Hungary. I am from like this small little town in the middle of nowhere, really. And my parents divorced when I was quite young. My father wasn't the kindest of men at all. He was actually quite emotionally manipulative, very, very unpleasant to be around. And what happened is when my parents divorced, I was sent to live with my grandparents on this beautiful farm. And my grandparents told me, well, not only does your father not love you, but your mother, who has to go away to work as a translator, she doesn't love you either. So really, you've got nobody in this world. Nobody loves you. Nobody cares for you. You're going to be alone for the rest of your life. And really, the only people that you can count on are us, as your grandparents. So if you can imagine that as a 5-6-year-old, hearing that, well, your mum's not there, so she can't prove otherwise, she doesn't love you, your father doesn't love you because he's not letting you be with your mum. And then on top of that, you've got these really deep kind of problems of just abandonment and loneliness. So I just was utterly just devastated by that. Then I moved to the UK. My mum remarried. She remarried a wonderful man. He adopted me, so I'm now a Mair. I'm part of the Mair family. And sadly, when I was about 11 years old, he went out for a walk to deliver post a letter. And he just had a heart attack and died before he could even post the letter. I remember, sitting in my parents' lounge and mum saying to me, "Darling, don't worry, he's with Jesus, but he's gone." My grandfather, he was quite high up in the Romanian army, and he was diagnosed with cancer. He was a really, really proud man, and he hated the thought that this cancer would beat him in the end some way. And so he locked himself up in his home. He took an axe, threatened that if anybody would try and come into the house, that he would kill them. And he took rat poison and killed himself. And then after that, after my adopted dad died, my mum remarried, and the person that she remarried was then diagnosed with a brain tumour. My mum was going through breast cancer, and I have some kind of a strange autoimmune disease that nobody really knows what it is, and it will probably take about 10 years or so off of my life. It's just the tip of the iceberg, really. And then last year, living in London, I was sexually assaulted on the London Underground. So, this is a daily reality for all of us, and I'm sure there are much worse things that you've probably been through in your own life. And I'm not sharing these things so you feel pity for me or so you feel sorry for me in any way. And I'm not saying this in a proud kind of, look what I've gone through. I share this because I'm a fellow sufferer, and I don't have all the answers. I don't know why this happened. But most of all, I'm sharing this with you because as a result of this catalogue of errors, I should not be standing here with you, encouraging you to consider the reality and goodness of Jesus, God the Son. I should want absolutely nothing to do with God whatsoever, and I should be an atheist, and I should be quite a militant one at that. And I was, for quite a while. I saw Christians as naive and stupid. I thought my mum couldn't handle the reality of pain. So what she had to do was project her Freudian desires on this psychological crutch of a daddy in the sky because she couldn't hack the reality of life. I thought she was weak. I thought that I was the strong one because only I am the one who's actually able to experience the full range of emotional pain. And I didn't need this God to help me through. I raged. I utterly raged. And it wasn't until somebody asked me the question, if you're saying God doesn't exist, why are you so angry with him? That I started to realize that I had a little bit of a problem. I had to account for what I've been through in some way. And so does each and every one of us in this room. Getting rid of God gave me less ground to stand on when it came to understanding what I'd been through. Because we all have to account for suffering in this vale of tears. Some way. And yet for me, if I was to be consistent in my belief that God doesn't exist, then I had to say that the universe, it just is. At bottom, there is no design, there is no purpose, there is no meaning, there's just blind, pitiless indifference. If he doesn't exist, then we are just lost. We're lost in this hostile universe. We're alone. There's no rhyme. There's no reason to any of this horror. Why do we kick back against the reality of suffering in the world if that is the case? We can't just get on with life. And more than that, why do we even notice that there's suffering here in the first place? It's almost as though we know that things shouldn't be this way. To feel the anger, the pain, the frustration, as our worlds give way and our hearts hollow out under the agony of pure evil in this world, we have the idea that things shouldn't be this way, don't we? And it certainly shouldn't be this way. I'd like to suggest that we can only really make sense of suffering with God. We're only able to call a line crooked if we have an idea of a straight line. It's only if there is a God who's given us moral values of good and evil that we can actually look evil in the face and say, this is evil. It shouldn't be this way. I don't think it sits well with any of us to say that it just is. Nature neither knows nor cares. We're just products of time plus chance plus matter. I really admire the late Christopher Hitchens. As you may know, after a long fight with cancer, he tragically died a few years ago. And in his book, Mortality, he talks about his experience of dying. And he very boldly and really consistently, with his atheism, says this. He says, to the dumb question, why me? The cosmos barely bothers to return the reply, why not? Why not? To ask why are we suffering this way? Why do parents divorce? Why do we struggle with anxiety and depression? Why did they hurt me? Why did I hurt them? All the cosmos really has to say to you is stupid girl, stupid boy, why not you? It just is. But that isn't how we respond when we suffer, do we? And nor should we. Because there is a God who grounds our pain and offers not what we think we need, but who we need when we suffer, himself. And so in the next 10 minutes or so, what I'd like to suggest that we long for are these three things when we suffer. We long for meaning, we long for comfort, and we long for hope. We long for meaning, don't we? We want to know why. We want to know that this hasn't been wasted. This hasn't been struggled with in vain. We long for purpose. We long for comfort. We want someone who's going to walk through this with us. And we long for hope. We look for those silver linings. We want something that we can hold out for and hold on to. Something that just makes it worth it and a little bit better. I was watching What Dreams May Come the other day. I don't know if you've seen this film. Has anybody seen this film, What Dreams May Come? Okay, a couple of people. And it's just brilliant, but it's heartbreaking on so many levels. What happens towards the end of the film is that Chris, who's played by Robin Williams, he goes to find his wife, who through a number of tragic events ends up in hell. And this isn't a hell of fire and brimstone, but it's a hell of her own creation that's formed out of her deep isolation and her refusal for help. So Chris, he goes on this mission to find her, and he's warned that he won't. And if he reaches her, it's really only to say goodbye because no one ever comes back. So to cut a long story short, he finds her. And this is what he says to her. It cuts off a little bit too soon, but here's the start of this conversation with his wife.
I'm sorry, babe. There's some things I have to say, but I've only got a few moments left. I'm sorry for all the things I'll never give you. I'll never buy you another meatball sub with extra sauce. That was a big one. I'll never make you smile. I just wanted us to be old together. As two old farts laughing at each other as our bodies fell apart. Together at the end, by that lake in your painting. It was our heaven, see? There's lots of things to miss. Books, naps, kisses, and fights. Oh, God, we had some great ones. Thank you for those. Thank you for every kindness. Thank you for our children. For the first time I saw them. Thank you for being someone I was always proud to be with. For your guts. For your sweetness. For how you always looked. For how I always wanted to touch you. God, you were my life. I apologize for every time I failed you. Especially this one.
And moments before he loses his mind, because you can only last for so long down there before you do so, his wife suddenly recognizes him and cries out to him. But what is it that happens that breaks her hold on her isolation and loneliness? Well, it's because her husband, Chris, said this. He went on to say, "That's when I realized I'm part of the problem. Not because I remind you, but because I couldn't join you. So I left you alone. Don't give up." Okay? Now he says this as he joins her in her hell, joins her in her isolation and guilt and anger and pain. At the end of all things, he decided not to leave her, but to join her. And as he does that, she comes to life. She wakes up and sees him. We want love, don't we? We don't want abstract philosophical argumentation at our time of need. After my dad died, if somebody had come up to me and said, I know what's going to help you, hang on, let me crack out this book of Theodicies that I took out from the library the other day, I think I'd hit the roof or probably just hit them with it. What we really want is someone who joins us in our pain, who comforts us and gives us hope. We don't want good reasons, though they are available. What we want is deep love. We want someone who's going to reach down and into the depths of our deepest selves to love us so much that they would join us, even in hell, and not leave us alone. And that is what God has done for us. The Father has sent the Son. Jesus has walked through our hell. He's joined us in our isolation, our disconnection, our anger and pain. He has taken all of that on himself at the cross so that we can come to life, so that we can wake up, so that we can see him. And let me tell you a story. There was once a woman who suffered with continual bleeding for about 12 years or so. Today we know what the medical diagnosis for this is. It was probably something called a von Willebrand disease, which occurs when there's some kind of protein in the blood that stops it from clotting, and so it results in excessive, prolonged, agonizing bleeding. Now, she'd gone to every single doctor that she knew of, the best and the brightest, but they'd given her absolutely nothing and taken all of her money. And not only did they not help, but the condition actually just got worse. One of her friends had mentioned to her that there was this kind of a traveling doctor kind of guy who healed people. She'd heard all about the blind man previously who could now see. And now today, as she walks back from yet another doctor, she hears a commotion. She hears people going, he's here, quick, he's just got off the boat, come see, let's go. And now this woman who's bled continually for 12 years is a social outcast. She's isolated, she's alone, and she's suffering. She is unclean. And usually a woman who's going through something like that has to seal herself off even when she's going through her monthly period. So you can imagine, can't you, that what this 12 whole years of social ostracism, alienation, the dirty looks, the shame she must have endured. Nobody would touch her because then they'd be unclean too. Nobody would come near her apart from those medics who keep spinning these stories of hopes of cure, but they never ever delivered. Utterly corrupt, all they saw are cash signs. They cash in on her grief and out on that small voice of hope that she said, that says, maybe this time there's a cure. Maybe this evening my parents will be able to embrace me. Maybe tonight I'll be able to play with my nephews and my nieces. Maybe tonight I'll be able to eat with others. Maybe tonight I'll no longer be alone. Maybe, just maybe this is it. And perhaps this is what you're experiencing. You know your pain all too well. You've looked for those places for hope and for healing, and they've let you down. And not only have they let you down, but they've made things even worse. You've gone to your friends hoping that they would cheer you and encourage you on, but all they've done is ignore you, talk past you, and focus on their own problems. Or maybe they have listened, but all they can really say is just how bad it is over and over again, and you feel leaving much worse than when you first arrived. What hope is there? Perhaps you've looked online and you've thought, you know what, I'll buy that. That will cheer me up. This thing will help me look better and feel better. Then I know that I'm worth loving. If I buy the right protein shake for my workouts, heck, I'll even try Huel. I'll buy makeup from these YouTube videos. And I'm sure that by the end of tonight, tomorrow, maybe even tomorrow evening, then I'll feel better. Maybe this time, maybe this will do it. Maybe then I'll feel how I should. But you don't. And something lingers. And so maybe we are just like this woman with the bleeding, looking for help and for hope, but the help that we've been presented with hasn't quite worked out. We feel even worse, even more alone, even more isolated in our pain. Perhaps, like this woman, when you hear that Jesus is near, you think, maybe. Could he? Would he? This woman, because that is all we know about her, makes this bold decision. She goes into the thick of the crowd where everybody's jostling around Jesus, and those who know who she is flinch and pull back. And she says to herself, if I touch even his garments, then I will be made well. And she pushes through the crowd and she sees Jesus. He's just at an arm's length away. She holds out her hand and she catches the hem of his garment, and she's healed immediately. The blood dries up. Now, Jesus knows what's happened, and he asks the question, who has touched me? And his close friends think, well, this is just a bit of a ridiculous question. Don't you see how many people there are around you? But this question is intended for one person to hear. And this woman, she comes forward, she's shaking, she's trembling in fear of her audacity that as an unclean woman, she's touched someone, she's touched a man, and now she's in really big trouble. She falls down before Jesus and she tells him the whole truth. And now Jesus' response to this woman's confession is staggering. The first word alone says it all. He says, daughter. She's gone from that woman, cut off, rejected, isolated, alone, to daughter. Jesus restores not only her health, but her dignity, her relationships, her status. Your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your disease, he says. Now, Jesus, he meets this woman in the depths of her isolation and pain and comforts her, restores her, and gives her hope. And he doesn't just meet her and numerous other people in their suffering, but he meets us, ultimately, in his own suffering. The blood that this woman has lost, we see as we look at Jesus hanging on the cross. It is on the cross that we see what God is really like. Jesus, the Son of God, God himself suffers. He goes to the cross, to death, in love, in order to reveal resurrection, life, and hope, which you'll hear more about this evening. We'd love to share that with you. A philosophical homeboy of mine, and he's probably actually more of an acquaintance really, Nietzsche, the Tashid one, recognized something about our human condition. He saw this. He said, you looked for the heaviest burden, and it was you that you found. You will never be rid of you. Perhaps the heavy weight, that suffering that you may be feeling this afternoon as you look on your own life, as we've spoken about evil in the world, needs to be carried. The heaviest burden can either be carried by you for all eternity, or if you let him, Jesus could join you. He could join you in your isolation, pain, crisis. You could give him your heaviest burden, yourself, to him, and he could give you his life. And throughout what is left of this world, this life, he could be there with you, offering you meaning, comfort, hope, before he returns and eradicates evil once and for all. Through his life-giving death, Jesus offers us meaning through his own tears. Your story of suffering can be woven into a better story of resurrection, life, hope, his promise to restore this earth, his promise of justice. He offers you comfort. He walks with us in our sufferings. He takes on flesh. He knows. He offers us hope. So this is where God is when it hurts. Jesus could be with you. He could be with you, offering you meaning, comfort, hope, his very self, because that is what God has done through the Son. And that is what is on offer to you today, right now. Jesus is offering you himself. Perhaps, like the woman, all you need to do is just run to him, hold your hand out, reach out and touch him. Because that is the kind of faith that Jesus commends. It's this woman's audacity to reach out and to touch him. Apologies if you came along for the free sandwiches and you got a little bit more than you actually bargained for today. This is a heavy topic. If that is you, thank you so much for coming. Please do stay and chat. We'd love to talk with you. It could be that you've been coming along for a little while and you've been looking for a solution for the pain and the burden that we feel as humanity, just individually and collectively. If that's you, please talk to the Christians on your tables. We've got these copies of an account of Jesus' life where he will meet you in your suffering as you read about his. Or it could be that this afternoon you feel the burden of your own brokenness and disconnection with God. And actually, you're at the point where you want to say, Jesus, I really want you to take my burden. I want you to give me your life. I want to reach out like this woman. And if that's you, if it could be that his spirit is nudging you, you'll know because your heart is probably beating that little bit more quickly. It's a bit faster. And you're thinking, yes, I want Jesus. Well, nothing weird is going to happen. No one is going to mug you. Let's just close our eyes out of respect for those who do want to make a commitment to Jesus. And it just helps us concentrate. Nothing more, nothing weird is going to happen. But for those who want Jesus, for those who want to exchange burdens with him, I'm going to say a very simple prayer of sorry, please, and thank you. So if you want Jesus, please just pray this along in your own hearts with me. Father, I'm sorry that I've turned away from you and I've looked for life elsewhere. Please take my heaviest burden. Give me Jesus. Thank you for giving me your Son so that I may know you and be known by you for all eternity. Amen. Now, just as we have our eyes closed, again, nothing odd is going to happen, but if you prayed those words along with me in your heart, could you just look up and catch my eye? And that really is for no other reason that you can say that on this date, on the 2nd of November, 2019, as we're gathered here at this event, you exchanged burdens with Jesus, and you can look back on that, and we can give you all that we need, all that you need as you start your life with him. So again, just eyes closed, just look up at me and just let me know. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us today. What we'd love you to do is, if you did just catch my eye, please would you make a note on your feedback form, come and talk to me, that would be even better, or chat with one of the members of the Christian Union. We'd love you all to fill out your feedback forms. We'd love you to come to the event this evening as we talk about the resurrection, hope and life that we have through the death of Christ. So thank you so much for listening. And if you have any questions, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes just to think about those, and then I'll come back and try and answer them. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you.